It is in news the video game companies have been delivering drastically different products over the past years. For example, if we look at the use of microtransactions, monetization of video games, and the key purpose of video game companies of delivering products that keep you addicted for as long as possible, so that you purchase as many transactions as possible, it becomes clear that these video games have been based recently on getting as much money out of the product as possible. No longer are the days where you just walk into the store and you buy a video game that is a fully fleshed experience, and you can just go home and boot it up and enjoy the game yourself. Nowadays, we are relying on half-finished products that hopefully will get finished after you buy them, and yet you pay the same price. The question then is, why did the gaming industry reach this point? What is the main reason why the video games nowadays are based on microtransactions and profitability rather than pure fun? Hi, my name is In-Depth Tale Gaming, and today I'll talk to you about how the ownership of multinational companies of small indie studios is the key driver in the increasingly worse quality in video games that we've seen. Before diving into the problem, it is important to understand how multinational companies such as Activision and EA proceed at buying indie studios to develop their games. The concept is very simple. For example, take a company like Activision. Activision is a multinational American company that bought, for example, Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer is a gaming developing company. Now, the key difference between the two entities is that Activision owns Sledgehammer, and consequently, Sledgehammer will do whatever Activision says. In contrast, Sledgehammer is simply a company that produces video games itself. They have certain artistic liberty and freedom to design the game the way they prefer, but ultimately, since they are owned by Activision, they must adhere to what Activision says. Therefore, in the gaming industry, you have several instances where you can see these huge multinational corporations buying out small indie studios and incorporating them as part of their own commercial activities. This gives much less freedom to the indie studio and gives a high degree of control to the parent company, which is the multinational corporation. So far, so good, right? After all, what's bad about a multinational company that buys a smaller studio, gives it resources like money and staff and equipment to produce even better games, right? Well, it's not as simple as that. Whilst it is true the multinational companies provide the small studios with the equipment necessary to develop higher quality experiences, at the same time, because indie studios are owned by the corporation, their activities change quite drastically. The structure is quite complicated, but I'm going to try to make it very simple to understand. When a corporation buys a small indie studio, their primary objective is not to design the best video game possible. Rather, their objective is to make as much profit as possible. Why do they want to get profit in the first place? Well, simply because the multinational company, as often is a public company, the multinational wants to raise profits as much as possible by increasing their share price. Ultimately, because shareholders own shares in the company, as long as the money is good, so as long as the shares price is high, shareholders are happy and will not sell their shares in the company. Then the dynamic we have is simply a corporation that tries to get as much money as possible simply because they want to keep shareholders happy. Especially in the 21st century, shareholders are very passive. Even you now can go on your phone and buy a share in Activision and then just enjoy your earnings. That is because the shareholding is designed to be passive. Shareholders are so distanced from the company itself that their only relationship and the only thing they care about is monetary. Shareholders do not care if the game is a first-person shooter, if it's an adventure game, a story-driven game, an action-packed game. They don't care. What they care about is the profit that comes from it. Well, if multinational companies want to keep profits high, to keep shareholding price high as well, how do they achieve it? Well, believe it or not, profit is not equal to quality. Rather, profit is reliant on monetary measures that increase profit by, for example, exploiting labor or creating incredibly addicting video games that are not necessarily good, like other titles. Therefore, because the multinational companies own the indie studios or the gaming studios, their instructions will be, please create this video game in a way that it appeals the most people, the highest number of potential players. And please, when you design the video game, make sure that you implement microtransactions as much as possible. We saw that with EA in Battlefront 2, including loot boxes. Well, that is just one way. Nowadays, you have Modern Warfare, where you can just buy skins constantly. We have the implementation of SBMM that pairs you with people who have skins so that you buy even more. We have games like Fortnite that, yes, they are free to play, and yet you have to buy a battle pass to enjoy the content. The store changes every day just to give you the urge of buying the next product. All of these measures are crucially and strategically placed by the management. Not the gaming companies themselves, but by the management. Because they want to get as much money as possible. And microtransactions and addictive gameplay and gameplay and mechanics that welcome inexperienced players is the most efficient way to date to get as much profit as possible. So, we've seen how companies want to make money and why they do that. But there is a further aspect to this issue, and that is the role of directors in making these high profits. A director is simply, for example, a CEO. It's someone in a position of responsibility in one of the multinational companies that own smaller indie studios. Pretty easy so far, right? Well, directors are the people who take choices. They say, well, design a video game that has heavy microtransactions in it so that we can make more money, for example. Directors are very powerful people within a company. CEO, CFO, CTO, they are all important, powerful people. Their remuneration, being their salary, however, is self-appointed. For example, a director, a CEO, can self-appoint how much money is going to earn. Then, their salary needs to be rectified by the board. The board must approve their salary. But the problem is that the shareholders, who are the board, are passive. They don't care how much the CEO gets paid as long as the share price remains high and they make money as well. Therefore, you have this weird dynamic where you have directors giving themselves more and more money and the shareholders approving it. They think, well, as long as this director gets me money, why would I change anything about that? Maybe that is why salaries of CEOs in the past 20 years increased by more than 300%, but the salary of an average worker barely surpassed the 10% increase over 30 years. That's massive. That's insanely high. This dynamic creates directors who are overpaid. The shareholders approve their high salaries, and directors implement measures that are exploitative to get as much money as they can out of their products. So, what is the bottom line of all this? Well, the bottom line is that multinational companies who own small indie game studios, well, they only care about the profit. They're multinationals after all. And they implement exploitative measures to get as much profits as they can, even if it means ruining the gaming experience. Whilst in the past, you could simply go out and buy your own game and boot it up and be happy that it's fully fleshed and a nice experience with no microtransactions, well, nowadays, it's no longer the case. You cannot do that. And the reason for all of this is because the company that makes the game is owned by a multinational company, which subsequently forces the gaming company to create a product that is not necessarily of high quality, but that is designed to get as much money as possible. And remember, quality does not mean profit. Games can be designed in a way that keep you addicted and spend money, creating even a gambling problem, as it happens very often in the gaming industry. Ultimately, companies care about the profit. And you can sue companies like EA for their loot boxes as long as you want. And even if you win the lawsuit, well, not much is gonna change. Because EA simply moved on and found different ways to render their games profitable. For example, look at the relatively recently released Battlefield 5, where you can just go and buy the elite skins. That wasn't there in Battlefield 4. Why was it implemented? Alright, because EA owns the company and forces them to make it as much money as possible so that their share price remains high. And this is the sad scenario for most parent companies in the gaming industry. In conclusion, hopefully you got a clearer picture of what is the deal with ownership in the gaming industry. Certainly, there is a lot more to be discussed about this issue, and I may even make a video later on going into more detail on all of these aspects. But hopefully you received a clear view, a good overview of the issues that are around the gaming industry. And the next time you boot up a game and you see the next advertisement within the game, or you notice the game forcing you to buy microtransactions, well, just know that it's not the gaming developer's fault. It is the parent company's fault, because they are the ones in control. Thank you for watching this video. My name is In-Depth Gaming, and hopefully you enjoyed your stay here. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.